Constructing your life is about much more than just building a bank account. Each week, join real estate entrepreneur and mindset coach Austin Linney as he interviews guests who are constructing their dream lives and impacting the world around them on a daily basis. If you're an entrepreneur or wanting to start a business, or you just want to hear motivating stories of how others have overcome the odds, you are in the right place. And now for your host, Austin Linney.
Guys, welcome back to Construct Your Life. This is Austin Linney here. And we finally got him on, more importantly, because he stopped canceling on me. No, I'm just kidding. We got Mr. Travis in the house. How are you doing, my brother?
Doing great.
Dude, you have so much going on. You have so many different things. You got a crazy real estate journey. What I want to do is you start your story where you want to, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, sure. So back in 2012, I bought my first house, and it was a HUD home. I paid 40 grand for it. I put 12 grand into it. That 12 grand came from me, like rolling the paint, me laying the tile. I did all the work. It was a foreclosure. It was hilarious because all the fixtures, all the toilets, and the back door had been taken by the previous owner. And so like I had to put all that stuff back on. I was like, why? This is the most random stuff. You should have taken the copper or stuff that's like worthwhile, but what do you do with a bunch of toilets? And yeah, man, I put that, I had so little money. I had to get like pretty much 100% financing. I think I had $2,500 in my bank account, and I met with the banker here in Waco, and I'm like, hey, I got like $2,500, want to buy this house. Can you help me? And because I knew a few people in town that were pretty notable at the time and still notable at the time, he gave me like really good terms, and I didn't have to bring any money to closing, which was good because like that money I had to use for like the mortgage payments until it rented out. Thankfully, that sucker got rented out before I even finished the renovation, and then I was cash flowing like $300 or $400 a month at that point. And I remember telling my wife what I had done, because she was thinking I was like looking for jobs and stuff because we had just moved here, and she was a nurse, and I was like, I don't really know what I want to do. I think I want to do real estate flipping. I want to buy this house. He goes, okay, I'm really nervous, but I'll let you do this one. And once I like rented it out before my mortgage payment was due, she was like bragging on the phone to her mom, like, yeah, like, yeah, he rented it out before his payments due, so he didn't have to come up with any money. And so that kind of began a great journey of buying a few more, trying to buy as many. And then I kind of spread out and bought a few in Dallas, got my ass handed to me in Dallas at a pretty substantial level. And then we went to buy a couple of apartment complexes. And then I bought into like a franchise program, and it was like throwing gasoline on a fire. We ended up buying over 400 houses in 5 years, really 400 houses in 3 years. And we had the franchise for 5 years. Most of those purchases happened in like 3 years, within a 3-year window. And so, yeah. And then just like most good things, the market got really hot and everyone wanted to be a house flipper, and we couldn't reach yield. We had a very big office, and by saying we can't reach yield, meaning that we were averaging like 35 grand a deal, and it slowly got down to 12. And so we had to do 3 times as many houses just to make the same amount of money. And that was painful, and I got burned out. And I just shut it all down. And then I can keep going, or we can dialogue about it.
Well, I think what's the most important is why, looking back now, why did you think you got your butt handed to you in Dallas?
I didn't know the market, and I fell in love with the concept as opposed to just focusing on the numbers. So instead of going, okay, well, I can buy this house for 300, I'll put 400 into it, then I can sell for 900, which is what I thought it was. It was a lot worse than that. Like if you're rich enough to buy a $900,000 house in 2014, which was probably the equivalent of like 1.7 now, you don't want to live behind a Class C apartment complex. And that house, one of the 2 houses I bought, there was a Class C apartment complex back there, and I'm like, I'll just put a whole bunch of like really, really tall trees. They won't know. Like, they know. They're real smart people that can, if they can afford a $900,000 house, they're real smart people, and they're not going to play that game. They're going to buy the one down the street. Well, that $900,000 house, I ended up selling for $715, and then there's like the broker commissions and the title policy, so I netted like $638 or something like that. It was something ridiculous. My loan was more than that, so I ended up taking a quarter of my accounted, I took a $228,000 loss on that property. And that's when that happened, that's when I was like, if I'm going to do this, I gotta get really serious and not stop playing around. I just wasted it took 14 months for me to pay somebody $228,000. And I thought I was gonna make like $250,000 on that, and we ended up losing $250,000. And it took 14 months to get in and out of that project.
And then, so why didn't you do what a lot of people do, and why didn't you just never do real estate investing again?
Well, what I what I told myself during that time was like, man, clearly it works. This isn't a bad model. Clearly there are people who are making money who at the time I was like, who are not as smart as me, but in the reality, that probably wasn't the truth. But like there are people that are making money. So if I can just figure out how they're doing it, then surely I can figure out how to make a living doing this. And so, thankfully I did that. I bought into that franchise system, that sort of thing. That really helped me kind of get some traction underneath myself. And then I met a lot of people in the industry, and then I got really good. And like we haven't lost. That's about the last time we really actually lost money, was in 2014.
Do you think that you could be as successful as you are now without losing that money?
No, I couldn't. And the reason why is pain is an excellent teacher. And until the pain of, my mentor says this, until the pain of being where you're at is more substantial than the pain of where you want to be, then you're going to stay the same. And for me, I had watched a lot of my friends become wealthy and have really great careers and create stuff and buy big houses. And I still lived in a $130,000 house in Waco, Texas at the time. And I'm like, this is not going to be how I end things. And so the pain of getting to the next level was worth it for me to get the pain of going through that was a great teacher. That I don't know where I'm going with this. Actually, we probably should restart edit that part.
No, we're good. Just stop.
We're stop.
No, I totally know.
Let's start over. Ask me the question again.
Do you think that you're successful as you are now because of the pain that you went through having to pay the $225 back?
Yeah. I think a great way to answer that would be to talk about the hero's journey. Everyone is on their own hero's journey, meaning like they're trying to figure out who they are, what they want to be about, and what impact they want to make in life. And if you read about the hero's journey, like you have to go through a series of pain or a valley in order before you get into the peaks. There's also a book called Peaks and Valleys, which I highly recommend anyone to read. It's kind of a toilet book where you can like read it. It's like 70 pages. You can read it over a couple of hours, or maybe even less than that. And it's all about like, in order to get to the peak, you have to hate being where you're at. So you have to be going through so much pain to get to the peak. And so when people just kind of quit, instead of just kind of pushing through the pain, which everyone is going to deal with, when people just quit, they're basically saying to themselves, like, I'd rather deal with the pain of regret than deal with the pain of success. And so in order to get to, like, if you look at anyone who is successful, they've gone through a lot of pain. Even the people that like in your head you don't like that are successful or are weird, like them going through a lot of pain and getting super close to bankruptcy, I think is the only way that you eventually get to the point where you're like, I don't ever want to feel that way again. I'm going to make sure I never make those mistakes again like that.
100%. And in those years that that's a lot of homes in a short amount of time. And obviously there's some systems that were in place with the franchises that made it easier. But, obviously you're in a different kind of sector now in your real estate. This is just my personal belief. And the guys that do it for more than 5, 6, 7, 10 years that flip houses or wholesaling, whatever you want to call it, God bless them. I don't know how they keep up with the machine. Do you appreciate your time and the flipping and what you learned from it? But obviously that kind of churn, that constant on had to be, some of it had to be joyful to get off the treadmill, I would imagine.
to stop flipping houses?
Yeah.
Hell yeah, man. Yeah, I would say, generally speaking, a good path in real estate is to flip a few houses until you have enough money to put earnest money down on a commercial piece of property. And then when you have enough money to put earnest money down, you probably, if you flip 5 to 10 houses, you probably have banking relationships, and you can go, hey, I want to buy this small apartment complex, this small storage facility, this triple net shopping center that is 70% occupied, and I can add value by finding tenants for the other 30%. Getting into commercial real estate is actually how you create the legacy that you want in your head when you started flipping houses. For me, when I started flipping houses, like I said, had $2,500 in the bank. My wife was making like $4,000 a month. I was making nothing because I was unemployed, and flipping a house making 20 grand seemed like just freaking superhero status. And then after doing that 400 times, you're like, I'm competing with the Uber drivers, the teachers, the stay-at-home moms. I don't want to compete with those people anymore because they don't have the $80,000 a month overhead that I had, and the $7-8 million revolving line of credit at 10, 11, 12% that I had. And so I was like, how do I get out of this? And it was hard. Like I literally had to go back and fire everyone on an October 2018, end of October 2018 is when I fired everyone and said, hey, I'm starting over. This isn't going to work out. And I have, the point I'm trying to make is here is you have to start somewhere to get somewhere else. And so you can't just, if you have $2,500 in your bank account, you're not going to go buy a $6 million RV and boat storage facility in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. You're going to need to start smaller, but eventually you get some money. You don't have to have a lot of money, but you get to the point where you have a decent amount of money, like 50, 100 grand in your bank account. And then at that point, flipping houses is actually more risky than owning a large commercial building. A commercial building typically comes with a non-recourse loan, meaning that if it doesn't work out and you default on it and you can't pay the mortgage, then the bank will put it into special servicing and give it to another developer who knows what they're doing. Whereas if you get foreclosed on a house, the bank is going to come after you. You're going to be in a 2-3 year long lawsuit, going back and forth, and the bank's not going to get anything because you don't have any money, and you're going to be stressed out all the time because you're giving all your money to your attorney, and it's not going to end well for you. You're going to get a deficiency judgment, and you're going to have to pay that money back. And so the bigger you go, the safer it goes. But yeah, I was in a place where I did not want to compete with the Uber drivers and the stay-at-home moms. And I'm like, if I got the intelligence and the network to be able to buy really, really big buildings, and that's essentially the transition I made into is I want to get as far away from anyone else and as far away from competitors as anyone else that I have such a niche market that I've created for myself. And that's essentially what I've done. Like we're building a storage facility in Georgetown that we're getting offers before we build it to sell it to like private REITs and publicly traded companies. And I'm like, this is exactly where I wanted to go in 2018. It just took me a little bit longer to get there. And so,
well, the greatest lesson I ever learned from the guy that's raising the money for the businesses for us, who's in the big time. I mean, he's in the big time. He said, Austin, don't tell me about what's all going to go great. He goes, I don't care. He goes, it doesn't matter if you're going to do 50% returns the first year. Tell me how I'm not going to lose my money.
Yeah.
Tell me what the risks are. He goes, that's the only thing anybody ever cares about when you're in this space. And it's the same reason why I know a lot of my friends have transitioned to commercial real estate, because the downside, there's more data, and there's more different loan packages that allow you downside to be protected. And that's why you see a lot of the wealthy people get into this type of real estate for long-term benefits.
Yeah, for sure, man. For sure.
So when you bought your first storage unit, tell us about that. And was it something that you had thought about for a couple of years, or is it just something that came up?
Yeah, when I kind of closed everything down in my house flipping business, I would say the first 6 months were survival, meaning like we had 42 renovations going. I no longer had a construction management team. It was me, We had, we were trying to unwind 72 rentals that we had that were not cash flowing. We were losing a lot of money, primarily because of the property manager, how he was managing it. Like, they were making them way too nice. They were, it was in a military market in Texas, and so every 9 months or 6 months, like a soldier get PCS, like permanent change of station, and like legally they get out of their lease, but they only were there for 6 months, and their pit bull destroyed everything. So I got to go in and replace the carpet and redo the drywall and maybe do some other things. And so the first 6 months was a survival. And the thing is, I got to the next October and I was like, oh, hey, I made it 12 months. I think I'm going to be okay. I still had a good amount of property to sell, but I think I'm going to be okay. And at that time, that's when I started like, where do I want to go? I'm not going to lose everything. I still want to do this. I have a little bit of drive left. I'm not super burnt out anymore. I went through a really hard season. Now I'm out of that. Where do I go next? And so I texted my buddy Brandon. I'm like, hey, or at the time I had a bunch of Airbnbs, and I was like, which is a hospitality asset. Historically, hospitality assets are pretty risky. So I was thinking, okay, what's a good hedge to make sure that if I lose everything here, I still have this, and my bills are paid, and I can go get groceries, et cetera, and I don't lose my house. And so that's when I discovered storage, because storage in the Great Recession, hospitality had like a 24% default, storage had a less than 1% default. And I'm like, all right, well, that's a pretty good hedge. So text my buddy Brandon, he connected me with another guy. I started making offers, getting laughed at, being told I'm an idiot by brokers who are now calling me wanting to know if I want to buy deals. And I'm like, well, you remember back in 2019, so still need an apology from that. And getting laughed at, not knowing how I was going to get this done, but making offers, learning a lot about the market, and then we ended up, because of us selling so many a lot of the real estate, like the single family real estate, we ended up making a lot of money. And I was gonna have a huge tax liability, and I was like, man, I gotta find something before the end of the year. And it was October, and I'm like, this is gonna be hard to find something to close on to stave off this tax too, because when you buy commercial real estate, you can force depreciate because of the Jobs Act of 2017. You can force depreciate up to, it was 100%, now it's down to 80%, basically meaning you can write off a lot of the depreciable basis of the asset. And that allows you to eliminate your tax bill, which is why commercial real estate developers typically don't pay taxes, and so, or at least income taxes. So I started calling every broker I know. I found a guy. He goes, hey, this dude doesn't want to sell for what you want to offer at, but this guy in Coleman, which is a small town in Texas, wants to sell. And but he won't pay a commission. So if you just want to like shoot me like 25, 30 grand when we're done, if you buy it, then that's totally fine. I was like, dude, I'll do that for you. So sure enough, I meet this guy, and it happens to be every single storage facility in Coleman, Texas. So I was like, I can own, it's normally a market I wouldn't invest in, but it ended up being the entire market. I'm like, dude, like I am the king, I'm the storage king in this market if I buy this. So
you're gonna get a shirt, you're gonna get a Cadillac, drive around.
right. There's that guy. There's a guy. But it's 5 individual facilities in that town, and and the gentleman that I bought it from, awesome guy, one of the best sellers I've ever had. Helped me when we closed. He walked me around the city, so like just it was that small of a city to get utilities changed. He goes, well, we get to drive to this one, but everyone else is just right here. And so, yeah, man. And then I inherited this manager that made it super easy, and I just love her. She sent my family cookies for Christmas. It's just great, man. I can't think of anything. It's a great situation. And so, so I ended up, like I said, I had to close on it. It was like October when I realized that I was gonna have it was like $120,000 tax bill, and I was like, oh, that's gonna pretty much be all the cash I have. And so it was like, I was like, I have to close it. I told my banker I have to close it. I told the appraiser I had to give him extra money if he gets it in, etc. I was like under the gun. Then like December 21st, the banker calls me and he goes, we need you to bring another 600 grand for this deal. And I'm like, oh, I don't have that. So I had to syndicate it. This is my first syndication. I had to syndicate it around Christmas when most people were like, dude, we're checked out. Like, we're skiing, we're with family. We don't want to talk about deals. Thankfully, I found enough people to give me enough money And we ended up closing on the 30th of December, like 2 days before I would have incurred that crazy amount of tax bill. So yeah, it ended up working really well. That's actually that thing. So last year we raised rents. Our net profit increased by 39%. We raised rents over 72%, gross rents, and so it's going great. The biggest issue I've had with it was my manager called me and she said, "Hey, this lady's really upset. She's moved out, but she didn't clean out her unit, but she still wants her $20 rent deposit back." And I'm like, "You can do that. You can give her back. You can give her rent deposit back. That's
You
totally
know
fine."
what's interesting? I want to hit on that for a minute because I've been here for about a month. I'm in, there's like 3 cities. No, it's not small as Coleman. I know Coleman. So it's not small as that. I mean, we're probably somewhere around 3,200 to 9,500 to about 2,000, right? The 3 cities that make it up. I had the bank come over and the bank's like, "Oh yeah, I know this business." He's like, "Okay." He's like, "We'll do a refinance." So we got a national lender for their 5 new cars. And he's like, "Yeah, we'll probably give it to you around." So I went from 9 to 4%.
Nice.
And he goes, "Yeah." He goes, "We'll vote on it. It'll be done in a day." I'm like, "Do what?" And so like there is something to be said to doing business. And yeah, you have to be careful and you have to watch where you invest. There is something to be said to deal with people that are used to doing business the old way, just wham bam boom. I have find a little joy, and if you're a change agent in the area, the city, the county, they will bend over backwards to make sure that they can help you, and I find that to be enjoyable, opposed to
Absolutely.
like an Austin or something like that.
Sure. Yeah. Well, like in a small town, like everybody knows you. So like you're the guy, like you're the storage guy, you're the HVAC guy, like you are the banker or the one
Yeah.
of the 2 bankers. And for me, man, I love going to Coleman. Rural towns in America are really the heartbeat of America, in my opinion. It's just like there's still just a lot of like goodness and a lot of like great people. Everyone's really
You know
happy
what
to.
my dream is, right? My dream is to take a town that's destitute and bring it back.
Nice. Like I
That's my
tried to do
dream.
that in Gun Barrel City.
Yeah.
He was a
Well,
big
I already
oil
got my
guy.
plan together. Yeah, I got my plan. That's when I really hate money though. That's when I'm just really ready to burn some money. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's gonna take, but you start with barbecue because people will travel, and then
Yep.
you go to brewery, and then boom, you start going from there. So yeah, no.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's a guy, we were on with my financial advisor, a financial projector spreadsheet guy, and he was like, "Yeah," he's like, "Me and my partner are trying to buy this town with its own airstrip." And every other owner on the call goes, "Austin, close your ears. Don't even listen right now. Like we have to focus on." So, but you have taken that, you taken flipping, you're doing development, storage, Airbnbs. What is your kind of 1, 2, 3 advice for somebody, even they're looking to move to the next asset class, or they're just looking to start? Where should they begin?
Yeah, before I flipped any houses, I read every book I could get my hands on about owning residential real estate, and so I ended up reading 53 books. And I know it was 53 books because there was a situation, and I had to take them to half price books because my wife's like, "Don't buy any more books." This is like 2009 when she told me that. So she's on board these days. But and then when I got into storage, I read the 3 storage books I could find, and I'm like, all right, I think I know it. And then I looked at every offering memorandum that I could get my hands on.
Yeah.
So go to
Yeah.
loopnet.com, Crexi, CRE, so commercial real estate exchange,
Well,
Crexi.com.
hold on. I want to hit this point. I want anybody that's listening, open up your ears, right? Because this is how I learned how to value businesses. You have to any offer or anything that you can get your hands on to understand the mechanics of a business or a storage facility or development. You need, books aren't going to be enough. You have to see the inside of deals.
Yeah. And if you look at 100 offering memorandums, you're going to start seeing the same type of words and cap rates and facility language. And eventually you'll be able to call a broker and be like, "Yeah, I want to know what the economic occupancy on this is. Why is it so low Why is it substantially lower than the physical occupancy? And how are you calculating the economic occupancy? Do you do it this way, or do you do it that way, or do you do it this other way? There's 3 different ways you can figure that out. And you really need to know that, because there's a lot of gold that can be found if they're doing it the incorrect way, which typically on these smaller rural stuff, it's like associate brokers that are given these listings, because the actual main managing director or main broker doesn't have time to mess with something less than $2 million. And so, but yeah, and then I think it was Alex Hermosi, which I know we're both a big fan of. He was like, you have to take action to understand. And so buy something, get out there, like start playing the game. Don't hang out in the arena wishing you could play. Just get out there and play. And I would say, like, yeah, that's probably the best way.
No, I love it. So what are you doing now, though? I think you're digging into something different, trying to give back, trying to provide value to others. I want to finish up there.
Yeah. So in the same thread of what we've been talking about, I started, like, we've got House to Empire. It's basically, if you are a house flipper, or you're a burned out house flipper, primarily, more importantly, and you're like, I just want to get out of this. We've got what's called a co-sponsorship coaching program. So basically, we buy large facilities, and we can bring you on as a co-sponsor on helping us raise money, and you can get part of the equity. There's, and then we teach you, if you're more green, don't know how to find commercial properties, we can teach you on how to find deals, on how to talk to brokers, on how to structure offerings, that sort of thing. We have attorneys, we have marketing companies, we have investor relations guys in-house that you can benefit from. So if you're like, man, this $6 million building is a really good deal, but I don't have the net worth to get the loan, I don't have the network to get the money, that's when we come alongside with you and help you do those things.
I love that. I think that for me, getting around all the groups that I did, and getting around guys that had 35 Airbnbs, or 100,000 units, or 1,000 units, or 3,000 units, or 40 Airbnbs, or 20, that changed my life. And if you really want to do it the right way, you have to get around other people that are going to push what you think is possible. But also, I remember like it was yesterday, I had 3 Airbnbs, I was still doing keys, and I was still doing all this stuff. I didn't have keypad locks, and they were just like, dude, this is an intervention. We're going to, and the moment I changed these 3 things, I felt like I could do 30 Airbnbs. And it was just like, boom, boom. It was one conversation. And so that's why I think these groups and these is just so important.
Yeah, man.
Awesome. Well, how would people find out about that stuff? How would they find you?
Yeah, you can reach out to me on Instagram at Travis Baucom, and then my website is www.housetoempire.com, and
Awesome.
Those are the 2 best places.
Well, I appreciate it, my man. If you got some value from this, guy, send it to a friend, and we'll see you next time.